I wanted to make Expo because, with the whole Paradox universe, right? I wanted to tell a human story. I wanted to tell a story that I feel people can connect to, and I try to find a subject matter that people tend to, because when things are uncomfortable for people, they try to avoid it, which I understand. But this particular subject matter is something I just felt like maybe I might help, I don't know, create some kind of awareness or something, make someone talk about it, I don't know. So I decided to write a story that could be uncomfortable at times, but it's a really human story and something that is relatable, and I learned from doing. I made my first feature film, and I learned a lot from that. And one of the things I took away from that is that making a movie where you don't really know the characters, you can't relate to it, so then all you just have is a bunch of people who run around doing stuff. But this film, I wanted to make it so that you have a clear story, have clear characters, and you can follow them and you can get involved in what the story is trying to do. So that's why I wanted to make this film. As far as tone goes, I set out with a certain tone in mind when I was writing the movie. I originally wrote something really dark, and as the production, it takes a village to make a movie, right? So you write it, and then you get on set, and you get in rehearsal with actors, and they bring what they have to the table, and as they bring it, you just allow, you have to get out of the way of yourself. I tell myself, just get out of the way of yourself and let the story be what it wants to be, right? So as people are bringing in their inputs and stuff like that, you kind of try to guide it in the same direction, but then eventually the story will become what it wants to be. And so tone wise, the final product is not as dark as I wrote it, but it still gets uncomfortable. So we started off with something really dark, and we ended up with something not so dark, but it's still enjoyable. My personal approach to filmmaking is, sorry to sound like a broken record, learn with everything I do. I try to learn with everything I do and improve on the next thing. So the approach I had for Genesis is not the approach I had for this movie, right? As I keep making movies, my approach is gonna constantly change. But as far as this movie goes, and what I think I'm gonna do for the next movie going forward, is the same thing. I write the movie, right? After I finish writing and get all the feedback and get a script that I feel like we could work with, what I do is I work with my team. We all work, and we save up money, and we look at what we have as a budget. Then we go out and we scout locations, right, and see what we can get for free, because everybody knows we all have families and friends and stuff. You see what you can get for free, and then I have my concept and the story I'm trying to tell, and then I write the film based on those locations and those props and the things that we have already, right? And after that, then we move on to the next phase with the actors.
Hi, I'm Richard Lippert. I play Chris and FBI Assistant Director Marks. Marks is an evolving character, and I think that even after having a chance to do him twice, one is just like buying the onion in the store, and in Expo it's like maybe taking it home and peeling the first layer off of him. He's a very complex individual, and as near as I can come to anything near that, if anyone remembers the X-Files series, the original one, with the smoking man, I kind of think that Marks is kind of in that same kind of a realm where he's in a legitimate position, but everything might not be quite right. And then, of course, Chris is just a totally dark side of Marks, and because of the nature of the genesis of Chris, there's no ability for there to be anything lovable or really likable about him. He just is purely, he is what he is, and there's no other side or nothing to him other than what you will see on the screen and what you see of the character. So it's a little bit of a challenge to portray a character that is not going to be taking you down any other roads. He is what he is, and He's a nasty guy, and I think working into that one, that was a little bit hard because he's a person who, personality-wise, is absolutely 180 degrees out of who I am. I mean, the opportunity to work with Joseph is one of the things that attracted me to the project in the first place, because we've been on a couple other projects with him, and it's always great. I mean, he's always a great influence. He's a real professional at what he does. And what I really enjoyed about this is, for one, as a director, Joseph really communicates. He lets you know what he wants, and he's not afraid to say, yeah, it was great, but no. It was great. I want to do this. Yeah, fine, do it that way. But otherwise, he's also really receptive to letting you kind of find your own way through a scene and bring some things to it. So if you as an actor have done your homework and you've done your prep and you're bringing ideas and concepts, to the set, and you can explain what it is that you want to do to Joseph, he gives you the freedom to go ahead and try those things. And he's open enough and to say, well past the not invented here thing of saying, that's okay, that's a better idea than we had, and we can go ahead and do that. I mean, one of the things that attracted me to the project was that when I looked at it, and as repulsive as Chris is, there was some real depth to the scenes that were there, and it was really kind of exciting. And it's one of the things, as soon as you read it, you saw that, there's really something you can do with this. And I looked at this one particular scene, the way Joseph had written it, and it was good. And then I just kind of felt, there's maybe something we can bring to it that'll just add, maybe make him a little bit worse than he was going to be originally. And so when trying to pick a candy to use, I needed something that would show up, that you would actually be able to see on the film. So much of the candy was too small, so you wouldn't actually be able to see it out in the context. So, and then I figured that, working with the women and things like that, pink might be a good color to work with and would show up. So I just kind of searched around. I actually started to say, okay, I didn't think of saltwater taffy to begin with. And I sort of did a Google search and said, find some pink candy. And I went down and found a place that had it, went down and bought a bag, and then experimented with it a little bit. And then we kind of got to that scene, and I went, hey, Joseph, can I try something? And this was one of the occasions where he said, okay, fine, and here goes. And I guess it worked out okay. My
name is Shepsut Wilson, and I play Caden. So, as far as what Joe and I discussed, Caden is just the ish, No, she's, she's part of the motivation and support for Richard. She's his backbone, and he doesn't even know it. So this was my very first time working with Joe. He's one of the most friendliest people I've ever met. When you go onto the set with him, he's very warm, and he's very supportive. You feel like you can really have a collaboration. He's very open to what you have to say, open to your insight, open to your changes, open to your questions, concerns, to the dialogue, whatever pertains to the scene and your character and propelling the story forward. Joe's always open to suggestions or concerns, which is really comforting. It's nice to have that support from your director. It's nice that he also cares enough, especially with me, because I like to perform physically. I'm very animated, and he allowed me to do my stunts, essentially. Even when we didn't plan them, he didn't get too upset, which was nice. It's always just nice to work with a director that gives you that freedom, and the open forum to have those conversations. There's a lot of layers to the story, as well as, especially the main character, Richard. I think it really is it plays off the idea that you never know what someone's going through. And I think that it's important to just kind of see, especially with the relationship between Caden and Richard. She has a good understanding of him. She knows a lot about his dark past, but she doesn't know all the secrets. She doesn't know all of the heart-wrenching and just heartbreaking endeavors and challenges that he's had in life. But she understands him to the extent that she knows there's certain lines that she can't cross, but then she also understands certain lines that she can. Almost every day on set, Derek had tons of scars and blood and all this goo all over him. And, you know, I as I was playing Caden, I had to be true and authentic and react to seeing that. But it's like once you see Derek with the bloodied up face over and over again, that's all I got used to. That's what Derek looks like to me now. My favorite part of filming. Well, one thing is just so much fun just to be there and to be pushing this story. But speaking of pushing, that was probably one of my favorite parts, is when I got to do some stunts. Fall to the ground. Be pushed by Titus, poked in the eye. No, I like the escalation. I feel like in those moments, especially when there's a lot of physicality involved, I feel like those are some of the most true moments, because you don't know how hard someone's gonna push you. You don't know how light they'll push you, and you actually genuinely react to it. I like the fact that Joe allowed me to kind of step outside of, you know, what was on the script, and let's explore this a little bit. Let's try a few different versions. I like that freedom to be physically true in the moment.
Well, it was just so different than what I had ever done. Like, I don't know. I didn't expect myself to play this character, but it was a great experience. It was crazy and amazing and scary at times, but it was pretty cool. I don't think she was crazy about it, because it was definitely scary and intense, and yeah, but she got into it and she was happy for me.
That's good.
I had a day to get into my character, so I just like buckled down, and I knew I had to be pretty into it because it was dramatic and there's lots of emotion. So I just thought of different things to get me into that state of mind. Most challenging, probably being tied up. I didn't like being tied up or anything in my mouth. I didn't like that. That was the challenging. Yeah, I think it was like a t-shirt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amber's t-shirt. I'm gonna wash it. I promise.
It tasted like lemon. So it was good tasting.
Yes. If you ever get tied up, make sure it's tasty. Yeah, that's great.
I think it definitely needs to be put out there into the world so people know about it, because it's happening all the time and it's like no one really hears about it. So I think you did good coming up with this film.
Thank you.
My name is Jack Dalleywater, and I'm the AD on Expo. I have not worked with Joe before. This was my first project that I worked with him. I found out about what Joe was doing when I went to Scottsdale Community College. One of my classmates from my screenwriting class, which I dropped, is called Nick Larovere. He's a producer on Expo, and I was asking everybody in the class if, because I just started school, if they had any projects they needed help on. And Nick didn't tell me about Expo. He told me about his company, Oculus Films, and he said, you know, you can help us out on Oculus if you want to. And I said, okay, well, I'll do that. So eventually, after working with Nick and seeing what he does with his company, he told me about Joe, who has his own company and funds his movies through that company, through the work that he does on that. So eventually I got to meet Joe when he came over, and at the time I met Joe, he and Nick were working on some scheduling for Expo. And I was sort of in the background and watching them work on Studio Binder. And then I asked Joe at some point during the night if he wanted help, or if because I still didn't have any feature experience, but I really wanted to get into features. So after I did my research and I found out what Joe was trying to achieve, I was willing to give up everything, and I pretty much did. I had 3 classes that I dropped out of so that I could work on the movie, and because I was a firm believer in the beginning, before you go to film school, that I was never there to actually get the qualification. I was just there to make sure that I knew enough people to actually get work and get experience. So once I had that and I was given the opportunity to work on Expo, that was the most important thing to me. So I just gave everything to it, and I was happy to because of the reputation that Joe has in the industry, in the local community, and because of how hard he works. He's like by far the hardest working person I've ever met. And he is behind the camera, but
I mean, like I said, I keep saying I paid everybody off.
But it's not the first time I've said that to anybody. Yeah, you know, we overcame all the obstacles, but it was difficult. It was just something that it showed me, and I knew going into it that this is something that I really want to do for the rest of my life, because it was really, really tough. Like that was the hardest I'd ever worked, and like the most exhausted I've ever been from a job, because we filmed so intensively, and you know, I wouldn't change it. Like I know that that's what filmmaking is, especially independent filmmaking, and like I don't care. That's the only thing I want to do. So there were a lot of challenges, but it was all, I look back with great fondness, and I can't wait to do it again. It's all gonna, you know, the next time is gonna be as equally as difficult, I'd imagine, because we're always trying to improve and push ourselves. But I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's laid back because we're quite understanding that we're pushing people and we're asking an awful lot from them. And I napped, so you know, everybody has to nap every now and then. You know, I think the longest shoot day I remember being like was something like 21 hours from when we started to when we actually left the set. And thank goodness we did have a day off afterwards. But it was, you know, it was a tough shoot. We wanted to get it done, and we wanted to do it without going over budget. We wanted to prove to ourselves and everybody that we can make a movie and we can do it properly, you know, like we set out to do it. So yeah, napping is important on Joe's sets. Plenty of napping.
Yep.
Yeah, take a day off, yeah. Just don't quit.
Don't quit.
'Cause we had some people quit, and
that's where that's where you start to get on my nuts.
Joe is a patient man, but yeah, and I can't. Before I started working with him, I just couldn't imagine him. I mean, he still didn't even get angry when people quit. Like, I would be so mad if this was my life and my money I put into it, because everybody around you is working so hard, but then people, you know, they just pack up their shit and they leave. They quit on us halfway through, like when we're in the middle of fucking something. So, you know, that was unbelievable, but it happens. You know, we just appreciate that that's happened. That happens, and we do our best to overcome it. But yeah, don't quit. Nap instead.
Yep.
If you're tired, tell us. Just take the time you need.
Yes, take a nap, take a day off, but don't quit. Awesome.
I'm Titus Covington. I play Majeed in Expo. Working with Joe is really a great experience for me, myself. I'm more of a person who's always in the director's face anyway, and it seems pretty nice about the whole thing. I'm always trying to learn more. I'm always talking to him, see how everyone's day is, and he's the same way, where it's he's talkative, trying to see more about you and who you are as a person, which I think is pretty good. I haven't seen that on too many sets. It's more of a family feeling than anything. I'm not saying I have a key to his house or anything, but I'm saying that it seems like a good organic uniqueness about the whole film thing, which you don't seem to see in many films, period, let alone indie arenas. The storyline, I got the script, I skimmed through it like I do everything else, see if it's any nudity, whether I need to work out or anything like that. Highly disappointed. But just the way the character seemed to form, and although he's stoic, it seems to have many levels to the character itself. So I really liked that, and gave me the ability to dive into the deeper side of my character and who I am personally. This little cheat code, this is how I usually do prepare for roles, is that I read over it once, don't pick it back up, and I think more about the character itself before I start to study the lines. So I think about how the character might move, how the character might act, how the character might react to normal situations, just like making a sandwich or talking to my wife, or just being in an arena. And so I start to get the essence of what the character should be. Dove it at Joseph, and he made some alterations and helped me mirror a similar character that was already out. I don't want to put his name out there because it's all about us. And I used that with what I've already had put together and came up with a unique character, I feel, for Expo. So just read the script, see what direction it's going, pick a persona, and try to run with it as fast as I can.
Hi, my name is Eric Lettman, and I'm playing David Peel. From what I get out of David here, David is, a high-powered attorney working for this organization, and he pretty much is assisting them in, accomplishing their goals and getting them out of any sort of legal issues they might have along the way, covering the tracks. Pretty straightforward kind of guy from what I imagine. He's comfortable in his shoes, you know what I mean? He enjoys having the control and the power that he has. I mean, he's just barely coming into this whole scheme of things. So I mean, where he can go from here, I think is pretty, open. And we're just gonna have to look forward into seeing what happens with him. And when it comes to film, it's so different because the people you're playing off of, the people that you're working with, they can come from anywhere at any point in time. They can change their delivery, they can change the way that they present the character, from take to take. So in that essence, just being able to be ready to become that character at a moment's notice and not waste a whole bunch of time trying to establish it allows me to really be flexible and, kind of be able to be responsive to the other character's performance. So I'd say the hardest thing that I had to do was sit down in a chair. And believe you me, that sounds ridiculous, but the chair was really close to the table. You know how it is, filmmakers and the cameras and where everything is. So the hardest thing was to sit down in that chair, seeing as I'm 6'5", and I kind of had to make it look natural. And there's nothing really about like this awkward motion of trying to get past the railings on the floor and the camera that sit down. But I think we pulled it off. It looks like I was sitting down without a problem. In reality though, if you watched it from afar, it would look awkward. I'd be like, your papers. It was great, but that was the hardest thing that I think we had to do. Everything else was pretty straightforward and, pretty simple.
Hi, I'm Amelia Haberman, and I play the role of Sarah, the younger sister of Richard. She's obviously a very strong character, and through all the things that she's been through, losing her parents and all the different challenges that Richard and her had to face throughout their life, she grew this thick skin, and it's made her really independent, and she's able to fight for herself, and it's made her really strong. It's always really fun working with Joe. But I always have a great time on set, and the ones prior to this one, though, he's been the man behind the camera. But on this one, he actually wears many hats, and he's the man behind the story as well as the director and the cameraman. Sarah's life is quite different from mine, with all the things that she's been through, losing her parents and all the challenges that they've had to face. So I did have to use a lot of imaginary circumstances to be able to align my point of view with hers. I had a lot of fun filming the stunt choreography for the movie. That's the first time I've ever gotten to do anything like that for a movie, so it was really fun. I also had a lot of fun filming a scene that got added in at the last minute, actually, where Richard and Sarah were playing in the shopping carts and trying to forget for a moment what they were facing and the hard, difficult times they were going through. I think there's sometimes a lot more creativity involved when working on an independent film because of the budget constraints. Well, I mean, I guess there's challenges whether it's an indie film or a blockbuster, but I don't think we really grow when things are easy. We grow when we face challenges.
My role on Expo, I was the on-set sound mixer and boom operator. I have worked with Joe in the past, and this was a vast improvement from my perspective. I guess I won't mention much names of other projects, but yeah, this project was awesome. It was well organized. We had the key people we needed in place. Joe, it seems Joe really learned from his last experiences, like by leaps and bounds, like huge amounts. It's like, so you could tell every time you're working with Joe and everyone he brings on set, like you could tell he really cares about who's there and what work they're doing. Decided to work on Expo is really because of Joe. I just believe in him as a person, and I see the hard work he's doing in filmmaking in Arizona, and I want to be a part of that, you know? That's what I'm doing too, so. Well, I guess what I found most challenging is what I kind of find most challenging about every film that I work on, and it's just that balancing audio and levels and mic positioning so that it all sounds natural, and dealing with like the outside elements that are hard to deal with in sound. On camera, you can control the frame usually a lot better than in sound. You have like a 360 world and further out from there that you have to contend with, and yeah, that's the major challenge for me. Like every film I work on is just being able to work around that. My favorite part is on Expo was just being with everyone that's on it, and yeah, getting to work with everyone, because like I said, everyone's pretty like-minded on Expo, and yeah, I feel like we had a good we just had a good on-set chemistry, everybody laughing and making jokes and being able to talk. But not only that, being comfortable enough to to bring up issues and stuff on set if there were any problems.
My name is Keith Obit, and I played the character of Chad. Okay, so as far as Chad, when you had messaged me about the character for Expo, I didn't realize that at the time that it was a prequel to Genesis, and Genesis was the second gig that I ever did. I'll never forget when you had came up to me and you were like, you're gonna be driving the mob boss's one of the cars into the scene, you know, and the cars will be here in about 5 minutes. I was like, okay, cool. And then 5 minutes later, the most gangster dudes I've ever seen in my life come romping down the street, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta drive this dude's car. Like, I was so nervous because like I've never done anything more than background. I'd only been on one set even before that. So to drive this guy's car, and so I didn't know what to do. I just went up to the guy. I was like, hey, what's up? Long story short, we're actually cool to this day. He's like a homie of mine now. And you came up to me and you're like, hey man, I'm sorry to say, but the car doesn't make it into the frame, so my big scene got cut. You were telling me like I was gonna be disappointed, but I was actually super relieved. I think this time, well, for me, I was more relaxed. The other 2 times were on music video, so this was like the first film experience I had with Joe, but I just like the relaxed environment. I really appreciate how Joe knows that the shots that he wants, because he is the writer, the director, the cameraman, like he's doing everything. So we're not just getting the set, like just really pulling shots out of our ass in a sense. Like I really like his vision. So just that aspect, I don't know. Just his vision and how he just keeps everything relaxed. Everyone's cool. I mean, it was just a great experience altogether. So Joseph had messaged me. Honestly, I didn't even read the script. He just told me about the character, and with working him 3 times before, I was automatically like, yeah, I'm going to do this without even having to read it, because I already know it's going to be badass. So I'm just really excited to see what he puts together with. I only did like a 2 or 3 day shoot, so I know my part was kind of small and stuff. So I was just trying to bring what I could, but I know in the grander scheme of things that he's playing a bigger part in the universe. So I can't really wait to dive into the rest of the character even more, because it's on some pretty dark shit, which is always fun to play.
Movie, I'm happy with the movie. Yes,
it is. It's not what I thought it was gonna be, but it is good.
It's 75%. I think 75% of what was initially written, and like I was saying before, it's turned out less dark than I intentionally.
I was going for more cruel and unusual than what came out. But
yeah,
that's
I thought
fine.
it was gonna. It didn't feel as dark.
Like
Yeah.
I thought there was gonna
When
be a
we
lot more hurts.
Yeah.
Hurts is the word I'm gonna use.
Which actually think is a good thing. Is going to work in the favor of the movie.
Distributing
a
wise.
movie critic that watched it made that comment. Said that they liked the message that the movie was sending without it being too dark to actually watch.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because if it was too grody, then it would be hard to get it sold at all, because
Right.
they're gonna be like, yeah, it's gonna be hard to sell this, so I don't want to take it on.
How did they sell the human centipede? That thing was
That-
disgusting.
That's a niche thing.
Okay,
Right.
I was just like, okay, so
This
that was
is not-
disturbing on all
yes.
levels.
This is like a more normal movie.
Have you seen Irreversible?
No.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, that kind of stuff is like
French movie.
it's like
Yeah.
Yeah,
body.
French movies are a little bit scary, okay?
It's like body horror. It's
Yeah.
very specific. There's a market for that.
Right.
Well,
But if
Saw
you're kind of
and
riding the
everything-
line, like you have to be on one side or the other, or it's gonna be hard to sell it, I think.
Yeah, you have to be
I
really
think-
horrible, or you have to be semi-horrible.
I think we struck a good balance.
The food was good, so
Well, the food was good, but
we can get somebody better.
That wasn't my
we-
food though. That's the thing. I had pre-ordered that
I'm
one.
teasing, I'm teasing.
No, seriously, that specific day, it wasn't my food. I didn't actually make that.
Anyways,
Tasted good.
Yeah, we're,
he said it's still good.
nice. We're working on figuring out how we can make better use of Ember, other than cooking.
Because I'm actually pretty useful.
Yeah.
And I've been stuck doing things that we can't afford because finding somebody to cook is very expensive. We looked up people and they're like, what they charge, $10 per person per plate.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
It was stupid. It was just
We're in
crazy.
the wrong line of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not getting a lot of work either because they're so expensive.
Like who's
They're gonna make their own food, obviously, like we did, and
You know
they're
what?
gonna try to bypass it.
You're right. We're in the wrong line of work. We should be all become pirates,
Yes.
and then we'll plunder and pillage and become rich.
Yeah, there you go.
And then we'll make movies.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
But I like producing, so I mean, I feel like the next movie I can produce more and less cooking, but I don't always get what I want. So
If we can solve our accommodation problem, then
makes
that
sense.
problem is also solved because Ember's mom would be able to be there, and
my
she
mom
can-
cooks really good.
She cooks really cool.
really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. So that would. Be,
I don't know if she could cook vegan though. That's different. Can't help you out there, Kenny.
But if only thing you had to do was make Kenny's food, we'd be fine.
Yeah, just go to Chipotle.
Exactly.
Every day.
Yeah,
Chipotle me
he
alive.
could live off of Chipotle all day, every day.
Every day.
Just put a different type of lettuce on it.
Using the experience from Expo
Oh yeah, that's
to
Make the next movie.
to make the next movie. I guess just overall having gone through the process of, because we've worked on stuff where you're on a continuous shoot for a month or whatever, but actually doing it yourself is different. So just everything that's involved in that process, transferring it over and just trying to do it better next time. It's kind of vague, but
No, but that's it. What I said before in the other interview is like the ideas of filmmaking that I had that I wish I tried on Genesis, I tried on this movie, and I got to see what works and what didn't work, and then so I'm gonna transfer
then you have
that
new
over.
ideas for your next
Then I have
movie
new
that you're gonna
ideas I'm
want to
gonna
try.
Yeah,
And I
it
think
just-
that each movie is a next learning experience. So you just do something that you
making
picked up
movies.
that you liked from the last.
what about
one.
distribution?
That's a
My
different one, too.
distribution plan has also changed because we accomplished the goal of Genesis. Absolutely,
Yeah.
we make
Getting
a
the movie
movie,
done
get
and getting it
distributed.
distributed.
Yes. Next plan, make money, and going the same route we just went. It's not a good idea because they rip you off all the time. So we've come up with a plan, and we just gotta execute it. And it'd be too long to explain here, so we'll talk later. But
Nobody needs to know your
But
distribution
we'll take that
plans,
experience
right?
too and apply it to the next
Yes.
one. Even though we haven't gone through it yet.
But we,
Of course
yes,
we will.
Yes.
Out on Paradox Universe on YouTube.
I'm gonna get them to shut up while you say that again.
He's playing with the things on his shorts and
He's being dirty.
That's gonna be great for the video.
Are you milking yourself?
That looks really strange.
I was saying you can find the vlogs on Paradox Universe on YouTube, so that would be cool. Check us out. Well, check me out.